Today I'm going to be showing you the technique that I used to make this turquoise looking tumbler. In the description below, I will list all the supplies that I used. Just reviewing with you up front, I used Artify alcohol ink markers that I bought on Amazon. There's 40 in the case. I think they were about $23. I'm only going to be using 2 markers out of that, and it's number 395 and 396. I painted the tumbler first with the Krylon Color Master Island Splash Satin. I'm going to be using some Jim Holtz alcohol inks and some 24K glitter from Glitzy Girl Glitter. I have a 30-ounce tumbler that we're going to be doing today. What I did with the markers is I took each marker and just made a random splotch of color until I had the whole tumbler covered. If you have a blank spot, it's okay. Make sure you don't want to get in the same pattern of the same kind of shape or color lines or anything like that. I was very careful to make sure that it was very random. Don't forget the bottom. You want to make sure the whole cup is covered. It's okay if there's little splotches here and there of the light blue showing through. Once you get that covered, we want to move on to the alcohol inks with the paintbrush. I have the Jim Holtz alcohol inks put in these separate cups. We have a few drops of Mermaid, Turquoise and Petina, and then I have some regular alcohol in this cup. I used a fairly small paintbrush. You can tell by how little it is. That was a 20-ounce cup. I may get impatient and move to a larger paintbrush, but I'll start off with this one. So I have the marker all over the cup, and I'm going to dip my paintbrush in here, dab it into a color, and just put some random spots on and just kind of dab it around and splotch it. I don't like the lines, so I just kind of blend them in. And you're just blending, blending, blending. And maybe you want to add a little blue to that. And you want the colors to run together because the real turquoise stone doesn't have a whole lot of segregated lines in between the color changes. It just kind of fades in and out of different tones of the blues and the greens. If it starts to run, just catch it. And you're going to want to do this all over the cup. I'll do some and I'll check back with you. So I've got some of my splotches smoothed out here, and sometimes I just go like this with inks. You can add a little bit of alcohol to your brush to get some movement going, dab it off. You don't want to do too much. You can just move those colors around. Just mix them all up, kind of make them all go together. Add a little bit more color down here. And I'm just going to keep working around the cup until it looks kind of cool. I suggest looking online at some really cool pictures of turquoise that you like and kind of pattern it after that. So you just want to get some color movement in there. You could do all the same color throughout the cup, but I wanted it to be kind of blended. So here I got a spot, and I'm just working it around and loosening it up, blending it in. You just want to be blended, like a blended family. And it gives that soft look where it's all mixed in together. No really hard lines in this section, just moving it all around. I'm going to work on it some more. Alright, so I'm moving down to this spot here, and it's got some pretty hard circles. I want to soften them up and maybe add some other colors. So I had dipped my brush into the alcohol, dabbed it off, picked up a little color, and I'm just softening up all these lines, just patting out the lines, kind of blending it in. This is way too wet for me, so I'm going to go over here and get rid of some of this alcohol that's on this brush, soften it up, and just keep dabbing. And then I'll work back over here. And like I said, you don't want to get stuck in the same rut of a certain pattern. You want it to be pretty random, because it's nature made. Turquoise is not perfect. It's not any one way. And most of us that like turquoise like it because it's unusual and it's not the same piece every time we buy a piece. It's a little bit different than maybe pieces that we've had before. So this spot looks kind of hard, so we'll blend these in. Maybe pick up a little blue, add it to this green area a little bit. I'm just going to keep working this in. This is sort of dry, so I'm going to dab just a hair of the alcohol and see if I can get some movement. Here we go. This is sort of green, too green to me. So I'm going to lighten it up and stick some blue in there and soften up those lines and get some color back into that area that got just a little bit too much alcohol in it a while ago. So I'm just dabbing and kind of dragging the brush sometimes, dabbing, and here I'm going to drag and kind of drag it around a little bit. Just very random looking. So it takes a little bit of time. I'm going to get some blue in this area and lighten up this green, kind of soften it up. So when I did the first cup, I was sitting at our dining room table. I wasn't up in my craft attic, and I was kind of watching over my husband, who just had knee surgery. And so I was able to do this at our dining room table without much fear of messing anything up at the table. I'm going to keep working on this, and I'll show you where I end up. So I started getting impatient, and I decided to use a larger brush. And when I was using this brush, it made all these lines, and I didn't like that. And I guess it's because the brush is fairly firm, and you can see the paintbrush lines. So I'm gonna smooth those out and fix those because I don't really like those. I'm continuing to work in these soft spots to soften them up and blend my colors in. I'm trying to get rid of the paintbrush marks from the large paintbrush. So I'll just dip it in some color, dab it around, and kind of loosen that line up a little bit and blend it in. Add another color. Kind of blend it in. When I hold the cup back a bit, I see some strong green tones and then some stronger blue tones. I'm going to try to blend those in a little bit more because that looks kind of heavy green in that area. So I'm going to work on that. So here I've added some color and then it caused a spot. It's okay. Don't get upset. Just dab it out. Dab it. Work it around. And just soften those lines. Once you think that you're done with the cup, you want to give it a good once over and see if you've accidentally touched it somewhere and caused some paint to smear, or if you missed a spot, or something looks a little bit out of place. Don't forget to give the bottom of your cup a little love, because you want it to be just as pretty as the sides. I'm gonna touch this up a little bit and then I'll be right back. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with the way the cup is looking. You want to make sure that you're happy with your color pattern before you move on to making the black lines on the cup. So what we're going to do now is we're going to move on to creating the black lines along the cup like turquoise usually has. I'm going to be using the black ink, alcohol ink. It's called Pitch Black. And so I'm going to get my paintbrush. It is a very fine point paintbrush. It's very thin. And I did trim one hair that I saw that was kind of hanging out to the side that I didn't want it messing up anything. So I'm barely going to dab it into the black ink. And to make sure that this is the right size of line and paintbrush that I want to use, I'm going to try it on the paper towel first. And so I'm going to barely touch the paper towel, and yep, that's pretty much what I wanted to use. On my 20-ounce cup that I did first, I tried to use the alcohol ink marker, and even the fine point on the marker was too thick for my taste, what I wanted it to look like. So I'm just going to barely dab into the ink, and I'm just going to start at the top and draw a random line. I'm barely going to press down on this paintbrush. And you don't want it to be really straight or fine, like a perfect line. And we're just going to fade off. And so that gave us our first line. And I'm going to continue to do that around the cup to give it some character. And if you feel like you've been going in the same direction for too long, stop. And you can take it over. That line's a little thicker than I wanted, but that's okay. I'm going to smooth this out and make some drop down lines. I'm not really liking that design right there, but I'll move on and maybe I can clean that up a little bit later. So you just want to ever so lightly touch. like that. If you feel like you have a little bit of glob of ink in a spot, you can always run off of it to kind of take the attention away from that. Make sense? So I would just do that around the cup. This is what the 20 ounce look like. So on the 20 ounce, I also added glitter. And I'll show you how I did that. I made some of the lines connect on the 20 ounce, but I just had fun with the lines. No rules, just playing around. So we're going to move on to adding glitter. I've got some good lines. I'm happy with these lines that I have on the cup. So we're going to add an accent of glitter. If you were doing this cup for a guy who did not want glitter, this would be perfectly fine to let dry and add a vinyl name, put epoxy on it, go from there. So to add the glitter, I did put some wax paper down so I could retrieve the spill off. And I have a little bit of Mod Podge here in my cup. And I have just put a very little bit of glue or Mod Podge on my paintbrush. And to start off with, I want to just accent down here on this line. So I'm just going to follow the line. I'm going to put a little bit this way and then follow the line like this. Get a little bit more glue. I might carry it down just a little bit past the black line that I painted on. And then I'm going to glitter right now. And I am using the 24K by Glitzy Girl glitters. I'm not really worried about the extra that's on there. I'm going to continue and do a little bit more on some of the other lines. Oops. That was a little much. So I'll continue on and do this until I'm happy with the accents. I didn't want to do a whole lot on my first cup, but it's looking pretty sharp with that gold glitter. It looks really, really neat and gives it a great touch. And so this was my original cup that I posted about. Once I put the glitter on, I let it dry overnight for a day, and then I guess it was about a full 24 hours before I put this coat of epoxy on it. I still need to sand this coat of epoxy. I'm going to put a name on there, maybe a little saying, and epoxy it again. I hope you found this tutorial beneficial. It wasn't really technical, but it was a lot of fun to make. It just takes a little patience. Have fun.